What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Matt Pete Marketing Podcast. I am excited today to bring you Katlynn Pyatt. Katlynn is the owner of Authentic Branding and Marketing, is a professionally certified in marketing management by American Marketing Association, and holds 2 certificates from Cornell University, Big Red Bear, one in business strategy and the other in marketing analytics. After 12 years of corporate marketing, she began her own business as a marketing coach for female entrepreneurs to help them brand, market, and grow their business. She believes in being brave, not perfect, and in community over competition. She's a mom of 3, has 2 cats, a new puppy, and the best husband who is #1 supporter of her as an entrepreneur. And a couple of fun facts about Katlynn. She apparently makes the best sugar cookies, the kind that melt in your mouth. Yep. And even after they've cooled, which as somebody who loves cooking, I've tried to make good cookies and they're great straight out of the oven. But once they cool, they get hard and crispy. And like, I can't make it happen. I can't. But you also love watercoloring and loves to talk, which is awesome for this podcast. And you have your own podcast called Startup Marketing. So, I mean, this is kismet.
It is. It is. So excited to be here.
I love that you have 2 certifications from Cornell. Because are you an Office fan?
I'm not. I need to get into it. Everybody has recommended it. I tried. And the worst thing you can say to me is like, oh, it takes like a season to get into it. Because as like with 3 little kids, if it takes me a whole season to get into something, like I'm probably
the first season's only like 6 or 7 episodes. It's a really short.
Why didn't anyone tell me that?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a really quick.
I mean, I know the references, right? Like I've seen the highlight reel.
Yeah. So I mean, it does because I love The Office. Like I listen to the Office Girls podcast, that kind of stuff. And they talk about, how like they were working with the original creators of The Office UK and learning from all their mistakes through season 1. So like Michael, who's the boss, is like, they help him become a more likable character through things they learned in the other Office. So it does take about a season to kind of get in stride. But like I said, that first season is short because they didn't know if it was going to get the traction.
Yeah, I guess I remember I did read, so I read Mindy Kaling's book. I'm a big Mindy Kaling fan. And she did say the same thing. So it's been on my list, but I'm
she's one of the writers of the show too.
Yeah.
So I mean, her and BJ Novak, who was like 23 at the time of writing The Office. Like,
they were young.
That blows my mind. Yeah. Like thinking what they were doing at 23 versus what I was doing at 23.
I'm probably in the same boat as you. I wasn't doing anything that amazing.
Yeah. So, I mean, but I say all that to when I read your intro, I was like going over it and it said certifications from Cornell. I was like, Big Red Bear. Cause one of the guys from The Office went to Cornell and he's all about it. So
yes, for sure. Okay. Well, now I'm going to use that. And I am officially putting The Office on my watch list.
I love it. So one quick thing that wasn't on my questions list that I had to throw out here. I was going through your website and on your homepage, you have a counter that shows years of experience, campaigns, certifications, and cups of coffee. Is that an accurate count? Like, do you actually keep a count of your cups of coffee?
No, I just put a random number, but it's probably not that far off. If I'm being honest, I drink a lot of coffee.
I was like, if she spends the time every day to like log a piece of coffee and then go on her website and update it, it's like, I'm going to be so impressed.
No, I think it says like 906 or something that. And it'll be 906 forever. I don't know. Okay. Maybe in like 5 years, I'll update it.
I love that because it shows that you're a coffee lover, but that it made me laugh. And I literally wrote it down. I was like, I have to know. Did she count these cups of coffee?
I love it. Thank you for asking. That's my favorite question so far.
Okay, Katlynn. So real quick, let's get into some marketing stuff. What's your marketing passion?
I am a huge fan of marketing strategy, creating a very strategic marketing plan that aligns your marketing efforts to your business goals. And this comes really from all of my experience in corporate marketing. I have been at a couple of organizations, but I spent most of my time at my former organization. I spent 9 of my 12 years there. And when I started as the assistant, we were like a very reactive department. And through like the course of time and like as I kind of grew in my role there and really started to kind of help be able to build out that marketing team, I realized that we really just needed a very strategic plan for our marketing that aligned with all of the division sales goals and the business goals of the organization. And it's something that translates from corporate marketing directly into entrepreneur marketing as well. I'm a huge fan because it really just to kind of like put a really fine point on it, it takes your efforts, your marketing efforts, and it helps you be really confident in what you're doing so that you don't feel like you're wasting your time or your money when it comes to marketing. Because I think that's like the biggest concern that I hear from entrepreneurs and small businesses is like, I'm paying for marketing, I am investing in it, but I'm not really sure what it does for me. And I'm not really, I feel like I'm just kind of wasting my money because I'm not seeing the ROI on it. So my number one thing and what I work with all of my clients on and I use myself is the a process of really creating a strategic marketing plan because I really do think that without that marketing plan, without understanding what your strategies are going to be, who that target audience is, and what the goal and how you're going to measure the success of those, I really think that you're doing a huge disservice to your marketing in general. So I am all about that marketing strategy and having a really well-rounded marketing strategy. So I talk about it all the time. It's going to be the number one thing. You'll get tired of me talking about it if you follow me.
I love that you said that. And, people can go to your website, getauthenticbranding.com, and check out your services and work with you. But really quick, you talk about having that marketing strategy. Can
Yeah.
you give us like an example of, you can even make one up of what that would look like inside of a small business to create a marketing strategy real quick?
Yeah. So I'll use myself as an example, right? I have a business that I need to grow. I had a corporate America salary, which was really nice. And my goal is eventually to get back to that point, right? So that's my business goal is to be able to meet or exceed my previous salary within the next the first 3 to 5 years of my business. Be happier if it was like sooner than that too, but 3 to 5 years, a little bit more realistic. Um, and as I think about like what is my marketing plan going to be and how am I going to grow my business, um, I know what I like to do. I know my strengths and I know my passion points just as a person. I like to educate, I like to talk, I like to communicate. Like I'm a speaker at heart, right? And so when I think about what my marketing strategies are going to be, I could say, hey, I'm going to focus on social media and I'm going to do I'm going to do everything to check all the boxes and like grow my social media following. But to be honest, it zaps all of my creative energy from my own business. It zaps it when I have to work on my clients. It's just social media is not my thing. Like I have a presence. I believe it's important. I believe it's important for everyone to have. But when I think about what my marketing strategies are going to be, it's doing guest podcasting gigs, it's hosting my own podcast. I do a lot of workshops and speaking engagements because those are also marketing strategies, right? That can grow a business and attract and get me in front of my ideal clients and customers. But it's not something that drains my energy. Like it really kind of aligns with what I like to do, what I'm passionate about, and what comes very naturally and easily to me. So when I think about creating a marketing strategy, that's what I think of is playing to your strengths and what you have the capacity to and a budget to support. Because the other thing too, social media requires to grow organically is very, very difficult because you're battling an algorithm, right? Like they're not the most friendly, especially to small businesses and entrepreneurs. And so when you think about growing your social media audience, you also have to recognize that you might have to do paid social media, which requires quite a bit of an investment. It's not the $5 a day that Facebook leads you to believe it is, at least not for the majority of people. So when I think about that, like I go, I don't really have the budget or the capacity either to like go all in and just focus on social media, for example. So when I think about creating a marketing strategy, that's what I think of. Like, what are my passion points and my strengths, and then what budget and capacity do I have to do? And that's kind of where I start when I think about building my marketing plan. Is really just what are those things, and then how am I going to make them align with my business goals.
I love that. And I love that because I just recently talked to somebody who's starting a new business and they don't like social media. They're a
Hmm.
photographer. And
Hmm.
I asked her because I was on a video chat with her the other day talking to her some business stuff. And
Yeah.
I saw that she created an Instagram account. And I was like, oh, cool. She created an account. I'm going to go follow her. So I followed her and I was telling my wife about it probably a couple hours later. I was like, yeah, you should go follow her. I was like, let me find her username for you. And the account was gone. So I was like,
Oh, no.
I was like, did I type it in right? Or like, am I misspelling her name? Like, and then I was on that call with her and she's like, yeah, I got back on there and I remembered how much I really disliked social media. And she's like, I
Yeah.
want to try to grow in different ways.
Yeah.
And I told her basically kind of what you said, like I'm there and I have an appearance, being there is important. So I told
Yep.
her, using the Facebook business suite. Have you ever checked that out?
Mm-mm, I have not.
It allows you to schedule posts not only to Facebook, but also to Instagram.
Oh, yeah,
So,
yeah. I use Buffer
okay.
because I
Yeah.
also publish to LinkedIn.
Oh, perfect. So there you go. So, I mean,
Yep.
finding those ways to still be there without
Yep.
spending all of your time physically being there. Um,
Yes.
I
Yes.
think I think is important if you're not a social media person, still doing it. And I advised her, I was like, I would consider at least having some kind of a presence, and then you can have like on your bio have the link to your website so people can go there and book you. But
Yep.
at least there's some kind of a passive presence. You're not you. And I thought it was like organic growth, like you said. They don't want to help businesses grow organically. They want that money. So
Hmm.
yeah, don't expect to get 8,000 followers through scheduled posts every 3 days or whatever. It could
Right.
happen. I mean, her work is really really good, but it's organic and
Yep.
but even if you book one thing from it, sitting down once a month and scheduling out your favorite photos
Yep.
from the previous month, could pay itself off.
Yeah, there are definitely ways, and I'm a huge fan of like automating what you can.
Oh, absolutely.
And I automate my social media. I do pop in every day, like to scroll through and like engage with like other accounts and things like that, and like look at the comments and things for there. But I don't like the process of actually like sitting down and creating each of the posts. Like it just, for whatever reason, like it zaps my creative energy, even though it is like a creative process in and of itself. I think I just get like too bogged down. Like my brain feels like a little squirrel when I go in to create my post. I'm like, oh, this template or this template and this color, like it just doesn't, it just
Yeah.
doesn't
Oh,
work out
I
for
get
me.
it. I'm the same way. Like creating Instagram posts, it's one of those things where it's like, would my time be better spent, working on my course rather than creating all
Yeah.
these Instagram posts or like sending emails to my list, like my growing list?
Yeah.
Would it be better? It's that kind of thing, that balance of like, where's my time better spent? So that's why,
Absolutely.
yeah, that's why I like
Yep.
scheduling things out because,
Yeah, and it's
yeah,
just it's as simple as you said, like schedule some things out. And it does, having a social media presence does give you credibility as a business, right?
yeah,
So it is important, but it isn't the only way to grow. And I think there's just this really kind of big movement lately where it feels like, coaches especially, and I'm a coach, so I know I see it all the time. I follow lots of other coaches. They're like, oh, social media, be doing all of these things. And I've downloaded checklists from other coaches where it's like, here are the things you should be doing to like increase your followers and your engagement. And I'm like, this is literally hours of my day to go and engage with all of these different accounts and all of these different groups. And like, I get it. I'm sure if I did it, it would work. But it's just not where I want to spend my time. If I'm going to spend my time doing hours of something, I want to like be on fire about it. I want to be excited and energized by it, and not like feel like I just spent hours staring at my phone doing nothing.
yeah. It's like, I think it was Gary Vaynerchuk. I was watching some of his content and he talked about going on Instagram and commenting on 9 posts and liking 9 different
Yep.
posts and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, I tried it, and this was a couple of years ago. I was like, this is the most boring thing I've ever done. Like, this is up there with like doing my taxes. It was just like,
Oh no.
or it was that bad for me. It was like forced. Like, I don't mind if I'm
Yeah.
following people, but like to go through and then like find a post and like, all right, what am I going to comment on this one? It just felt like work. you know?
Right. And then it doesn't feel authentic, right? Like
Exactly.
you put it out there. And that's you and I had like a very similar experiences. I was like, I don't have anything like genuine to say here, but I'm tired of scrolling. So now I'm just going to comment on the next handful of accounts. And that sucks. Like they don't want that,
That's 100% how it
like,
goes.
oh, that sounds so awful to admit, but that's, I was like, that's the thing, as personally, social media doesn't really energize me. I've taken lots of breaks from social media in the past year because I'm like, this just it really doesn't energize me. And it just kind of leaves me feeling like, oh, like so drained. And when I'm forcing myself in that as my business, like it goes against the grain of like my marketing philosophy, which is being very authentic. I mean, that's the name of my business is
Yeah.
authentic branding and marketing. So if I'm acting like inauthentically with your accounts and I'm engaging inauthentically, like what does that say about me? Not a whole lot. So
And now, all that said, the only things I like about social media, or a couple of things, I love the engagement when people
yeah.
like, hey, I've been following your podcast and all this kind of stuff. And like people like and actually like genuinely comment. Like I said, when I'm on my Instagram feed, if I'm like scrolling through and comment, like it's now authentic. Like you said, like
Yes.
I'm not making stuff up if I comment now because I'm not trying to go out there and feel forced to comment. I'm just genuinely
Right.
talking. So whenever I see people doing that, I love going back and forth. Like I met this guy. I was at Popeyes the other day getting food, and I had one of my Marketing Matters shirts on, with, like for my podcast. And he came, he's like, hey, do you do marketing? And like we got to talking, and now he's like, he just messaged me right before our call, and he's like, hey, can I take you to lunch so I can pick your brain? And it's like that kind of stuff. We connected,
Yeah.
and then we reach out through Instagram, and that's how he's been following me now, and
Yeah.
he wants to take me out to lunch. I love the
Totally.
authentic connections. That, and I love doing Facebook lives.
Oh,
So yeah,
yeah.
because I feel like it's not like creating posts for Instagram and scheduling them out. For
Mhm,
me,
mhm.
it's coming up with content for people and then putting that out there, see how it performs. And then I can email my list, hey, did you check out this video? And it's providing
Yep.
content for them as well.
Yep.
So that
Absolutely.
I love that double-sided, repurposing content for sure.
Absolutely. And I think that's like everything you're talking about, I think is spot on. It's really about finding what works for you. So it's not like a zero sum game.
Oh,
Just because I
absolutely.
don't love social media, it doesn't mean that I spend no time on it. I
Mhm.
do like creating videos for it. I use a lot of the content for my podcast to like feed my social media. It feeds my email list. There's really great things about it. It's kind of finding that balance. And if engaging with a million accounts and like trying to grow really organically and going all in on a social media strategy isn't for you, like that's okay. You can have a good presence and be successful and create really authentic engagement but not spend all of your time there. And I think if you are somebody who is learning or looking at starting your business and you're kind of going out there and you're scrolling through to see how other people are doing it, I think we do ourselves a disservice right now because so many people make it seem like social media is the only way to go. And then you dig into it and you find out that it requires all this work and it's such a turnoff. So there is middle ground. And I think that's the other thing to take away too, is that, just because you don't want to do something exactly by the book of how somebody else is doing it, doesn't mean you can't make it work for you.
I love that. That's a good, just like life quote.
Thank you.
All right. So what I want to do now is I'm going to jump into some pod decks. People who watch the podcast or listen to it, they know what these are. It's a random deck of questions. I'll draw one here. If anybody likes these, I'm actually have a deal with them that if you use code TheMattPete, all is like one word, capital letters, you get 10% off of any of their physical products, which they have a good many decks, and they're all really awesome. All right. So, Katlynn, your question is, which band or artist, dead or alive, would play at your funeral?
Oh my gosh. You can see in the background here, it would clearly be Billy Joel,
Yep. Yeah, all
which
kind
I
of
know
posters.
is a bizarre response for a 33, to think about my age, 33-year-old woman. Um, but Billy Joel is my jam. I grew up playing the piano. I played it for 13 years. And I had the coolest piano teacher in high school who like didn't force me to always play just classical music. She made a deal with me. If I practiced my classical pieces, I could play one Billy Joel song at each recital. So I grew up like learning to play his music on the piano. I'm not as good as he was or is. Just as a side note. Um, but yeah, he's my favorite. And I love everything about it. I've gone to see him 4 times in concert. The most recent one was at Madison Square Garden in New York City.
Oh,
So
wow. That's cool.
phenomenal.
And that's a good
Yeah.
teacher too, saying, hey, you need to do the stuff you need to do, but you can also do that, which
Yes.
probably honestly made you a better musician because everybody else is just practicing their classical pieces and moving on. You're sitting there practicing classical and then Billy Joel on top of it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
really
So
cool. I love that. That was a perfect answer considering people watch on YouTube. You can see your Billy Joel posters literally right
yes,
behind you,
all 4 of them.
right above the piano.
Exactly. And my husband like cringed. They used to be in my office at my corporate job. And so when I obviously wasn't working there anymore, I'm like, well, these have to go up now. And he was like, ugh, they are so much better in your office. And he was like, well, maybe someday we'll have like a separate office at our house for me. But
Yeah,
until now,
I'm sure
feast your
he's
eyes.
that probably contributes to him being your number one fan. He's like, I really want her to have her own office.
For sure. He's like, how do I get these posters out of our living room?
All right, Katlynn, what's something you see people doing in their marketing that makes you cringe?
Oh my God. The biggest one I think is really, and again, I'm going to go back to having a strategic marketing plan. It's really not aligning their marketing efforts to kind of like the 3 very strategic pieces of a marketing plan. And that first is knowing who their target audience is. So they're doing kind of like spaghetti marketing is what I call it, where they just kind of like throw random things at the wall to see what sticks. And then they hope for the best. So if they don't know who their target audience is, then they're not tying those marketing efforts back to what that business goal is, and they're not measuring their marketing, so they don't have like a numbers goal for their marketing that they're like, okay, this is how I'm going to consider it successful. It's whether I get a certain percent of growth or I generate a certain amount of sales. And again, like it makes me cringe because then you're really doing yourself a disservice. You don't know then if your marketing is working the best for you, right? And you don't know if it's generating the ROI that you deserve, because that's the thing when it comes to marketing, when you're investing in it, and I really do believe that marketing is an investment and not a cost. You want to grow and scale your business, and if you don't know who that target audience is and you're not aligning your marketing strategies to it, or you do know who your target audience is, but you're not meeting them in the right place at the right time with your marketing, and you don't know what those business goals are, and you haven't tied all of those things together, then how do you know if your marketing is successful? And how do you know? I mean, you're spending hard-earned dollars. So when I see people that are like, I don't I don't know what I'm trying to accomplish, but I'm doing marketing and I'm doing stuff and things and I'm paying for it. I'm like, but why? Why are you paying for it if you don't know those things? Because you're doing yourself a disservice. You don't know what your ROI is and you don't know how you're going to grow and scale with your marketing. And that's what marketing's for, is to help you grow and scale. So if you're not tying your marketing efforts to your target audience and your business goals, stop and take a step back and think through those things, because it's really going to move your marketing from just a list of things that you do or that you're trying to really being very strategic and purposeful for your business.
Well, so how do you track like your ROI on your marketing? Do you have like a spreadsheet or like how are you actually doing that?
So if you don't have money to invest in a tool, doing like an old school spreadsheet is kind of the way to go. And I did, when I was in the corporate world, honestly, I had kind of a combination of both of them, to be honest. I had like a gigantic Excel spreadsheet where I tracked every single dollar that I allocated for a budget. And I mean, this is probably I mean, you could go into this detail if I'm being like super anal about how you track your marketing. This is probably the best way because it works, right? Is to know exactly how much you've allocated for every single marketing effort throughout your year or whatever time period you're planning. But then I also used a tool. It's a little bit pricey, but honestly, it does all the math for you. So if you are not a math person like me, it's called Media Tool. It is like $100 a month, which is like, ugh, especially as an entrepreneur, it's not like what I would want to spend. So I haven't personally invested in it. So I'm still just using an old school spreadsheet at this point. But that's kind of like on the list of like next level things, because it does all of the math for you. It tracks all of your impressions. I mean, you have to input the information, obviously, but then it makes it very easy to like pull that information out. Um, but it tracks the impressions, it tracks your spend, it gives you all of the like cost per click and the ROI. It calculates all of that stuff for you. So if you are somebody who really does want to know what is my marketing doing for me, that's a really handy tool. Otherwise, it's old school math that you're plugging into an Excel spreadsheet, and that works just as well and is obviously way less expensive. But if you are somebody who, especially if you are kind of in a startup environment where maybe you have to report to investors, a board of directors, executives of any kind, using Media Tool, it makes it super easy to pull reports because you can filter by time period, by campaigns, by all that different stuff. So if you are somebody who really does have to report up on marketing spend, that's a huge time saving tool. But otherwise, it's a spreadsheet.
That's cool. I was just looking at Media Tool you're talking about, and it's kind of like a breakdown, like all kinds of different graphs. You got different
Hmm.
platform, Google Analytics, Facebook, Instagram, Messenger, Google Ads, like all this kind of different stuff you can plug into it.
Yeah.
And like you said, I love being able to filter down. Like
Hmm.
you could do that with an Excel spreadsheet, but it's going to take a hot minute for you to sit down and do it yourself, basically.
It is. It is. And Media Tool, like, obviously knows the formulas for all of those things already. So all
Yeah.
you have to do is like input the numbers, which is really nice. But if you do things too, if you do more traditional advertising where it's really difficult to get those numbers and things like that. So if you do any sort of like newspapers advertising or
Billboards or magazines.
postcards.
Yeah.
Yeah, anything that's like more traditional and isn't digital marketing, you can track all of that still and like input all of that information. And again, you have to know that stuff going in, right? So
Yeah.
that's kind of the caveat. Anytime you're investing in your marketing, you should know what your impressions are, what your reach is going to be. Like that's all information you need to get up front to be making a smart marketing investment decision. But then you just kind of input that into the tool, and yeah, it lets you create graphs. You can pull it. It functions like the data input is just like Excel. So you're not going to have to like learn how to use any sort of crazy data entry system, but it really does a fantastic job of kind of like bringing all that stuff together and really painting a super clear picture. So
That's cool. I've always wondered,
yeah,
if there's an easier way to do that, but again, like you said, it's not something that I'm going to start out with because $100 a month
correct.
is not cheap. I mean, that's,
No, it's not.
yeah, but it's definitely something to work up to because being able to track that efficiently, what you track
Right.
grows. I mean, that's a
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Caitlin, if you were going to start marketing for a new business today and you only had $1,000 in your budget, how would you spend that to get some new clients?
Hmm. Um, I am probably going to spend it on Pinterest marketing. And I know
Oh,
I was like, hey, I don't really care for social media. However, my caveat to that is Pinterest is a very small business and entrepreneur friendly. Their algorithm in general is much friendlier. Um, and there is a fantastic app called Tailwind that allows you to have really amazing reach, and gets you in front of ideal customers. So let me kind of break this down. Tailwind is $15 a month, or 10 to 15, kind of depending on what level you select. And I like Pinterest because it functions more like a search engine. So if you stop thinking of Pinterest as social media and think of it as a search engine, I actually did I did a whole episode on this for my podcast. But Pinterest really functions like a search engine, and those searchers are more likely to buy when they are searching on Pinterest than on any other social media platform. And it skews pretty evenly between men and women. It spans a lot of different age ranges. And what I like about using Pinterest is that, unlike all of the other social media channels, a pin that you create is going to last for months versus 24 hours or less in like your traditional Facebook, Instagram cycle. Okay. And Pinterest really rewards you for having a valid website to drive people to. So I use it for growth for my podcast, but also to drive traffic to my own page, to my free resources. So you can grow an email list, increase traffic to your website. And Tailwind, and you don't have to have followers. So that's the thing. When you are on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, whatever, you have to have more followers to get more visibility, right? And so it's like this giant catch 22. How do you do that? It goes back to paid advertising versus organic growth. Pinterest, however, you don't have to have followers in order for Pinterest to serve up your pin to potential people. So I've got 12 whole followers on Pinterest, right? It's like measly. However, I have several pins that have gotten over 110,000 views,
Well,
right? I can't touch that on Instagram and Facebook as a new business. But on Pinterest, you don't have to have those followers because they reward you based on like keyword. It's a very SEO based or search engine optimization based platform. So if you're inputting the right keywords into your titles and your pin descriptions, you're getting discovered a lot faster. And like I said, those pins last for a lot longer. So I would take that $1,000, I'd invest in Tailwind, because Tailwind has a creator studio very similar to Facebook Business or Ads Manager, where it helps you create the 10 to 15 pins a day that they like to see. But then it also has these amazing things called communities. And those are other business owners who are uploading their pins to these relevant communities. So for me, I've joined communities of other creative entrepreneurs, other female entrepreneurs. And when I create a pin, I can upload it to that community. And those people who are part of the community know that it's pre-vetted, right? Because I have a vested interest in making my pin as desirable, as searchable as possible. And I'm hitting all of the best practices so that when I don't have 10 to 15 of my own pins, I go to that community and I look for someone else's who has something similar and I pin it to my board. And that's what skyrockets all of that reach. So the pins that I have is because I've had 200 other people use it to pin to their boards. And that's like free advertising. So I'd take that $1,000, I'd invest in Tailwind. And then, to be honest, I'd probably pay somebody to create all those pins for me. And that's where my budget would go.
oh, I just took a bunch of notes on that. So follow-ups. Okay, so I have a new podcast. It's got, I think there's like 7 or 8 episodes out right now. I've recorded it over 20 at this point. But I don't have, obviously I have 7 episodes. Let's go with that.
Yeah.
I don't have 15 posts collectively. So how do I do 15 posts a day?
So here's what Pinterest likes to see. By 10 to 15 different pins, it doesn't all have to be yours. So that's where the communities comes in really handy. Pinterest weights your first 5 pins more heavily than the rest of them that follow that day. So the first 5 pins should be Matt's, But then the other 5 to 10 pins could be from those communities. It could be other, podcasting resources or general marketing tips, how to use an email list to grow your podcast, anything like that. Right. So you use those communities to kind of backfill your schedule that you don't have. But you could take those episodes, and what Pinterest wants to see by unique pins, they just mean that it could all point to the same episode, but they just want to see 5 to 10 different images. They want the text to be a little different. So you could take one episode and you could pull a quote out from it, and that could be one pin. Then you could pull out and create maybe like 2 to 3 just kind of generic posts for it. And so you're just kind of changing out that image and switching up the text on that image, but it all points back to the same episode. So you can take one episode and create 10 to 15 different pins for it if you're getting really creative about it.
Okay. So that for me, because I've never used Pinterest. I don't know
Yeah.
what it's about. My wife sends me pins from time to time, but other than that, like I've never used it. But knowing that, see, I thought a unique pin had to be like in different episode each time.
Nope.
So I can sit down.
It just has to look different.
So I can sit down for my 7 episodes, come up with 10 different images, whether it's stock photos or whatever.
Yeah.
And so do those photos, do they have to be on my website, or is it just done on Tailwind? Just upload
Nope.
those to Tailwind?
You can do it. I use Canva to create my pins. So you could just create 15 different pins. So you could go through, pick 15 different templates, or, honestly use maybe 2 to 3 templates, but swap out like the pictures and the text on it.
Yeah.
And then link them all back to that same episode and
Sounds
publish them.
Sounds like an absolute amazing way to test headlines and episode graphics.
Yep.
Because,
and they have a really great analytics system that it'll tell you like your top performing pins. It's super easy to do that A/B test and kind of go through, like you were saying, and test those headlines and graphics and things like that. So even if you're somebody who's like, I'm not really sure what my aesthetic is yet, you can use that as a way to really test it and find out like, hey, is it photos that resonate? Is it maybe icons and graphics? Is it a picture of me that works really well? What is going to get people to like save these pins? And it's a really fantastic, easy way to do it. So that $1,000, I'm investing in paying for that app. And then because I want to save myself time, I'm gonna outsource and I'm gonna pay someone to do that for me. But Pinterest is it's a search engine at heart. So don't think of it as social media. Think of it as somebody who is going to search for it. And I wish I remembered all of the statistics like offhand, but people are so much more likely to purchase. I want to say it's like 40% more likely. Don't quote me on that. But they are more likely to purchase. And as long as your website is set up properly, meaning like you've got, a valid URL, it's up to date, and your content actually relates back to it, it's a really phenomenal way to drive traffic to the things that you want to see.
Okay, so go ahead.
No, if you do want to advertise on Pinterest, I think it's like 80% of Pinterest users say that they find the ads on Pinterest helpful, which when is the last time anybody has said an ad is useful to them?
Right.
So if you do decide that you're going to do social media advertising, that Pinterest is also kind of the way that I would go there.
Okay. So last follow-up question about Pinterest.
Yeah.
Pinterest. I've heard it both ways. Okay. So you said I can just point to the same place, do different variations. Yep. If I have my 7 episodes, would you recommend, if I want to A/B test, these different hooks and everything, would you suggest that I spread them out? So like do episodes 1 through 5 on Monday, then a different variation of episodes 1 through 5 on Tuesday? Or would you say do 5 different variations of episode 1 on Monday, 5 different variations of episode 2 on Tuesday? You see what I'm saying? Like, should I spread it out or?
Yep. I don't think it's going. What would I do? I typically, and this is just probably from my own process, like I just go an episode at a time.
Okay.
Now that being said, Tailwind is going to track the analytics from each of your each of your pins the exact same way. So even if you say, hey, I'm going to publish a pin for each episode, for example, on Monday. So episodes 1 through 7 get 1 pin or 2 pins on Monday. When you're filtering your analytics, you just kind of have to be aware. I think it's more of like just knowing that when you filter those analytics, like how did you go about putting them out there? So that way, when you take that time period, you kind of understand like, okay, did this pin maybe have a couple more days to perform than another one? So for me, from a process standpoint, I think it's easier to just go by episode. And then it keeps it really clean when you are filtering in your analytics to know like, hey, I did it like this. So that's kind of how I approach it. But honestly, I don't think it's going to make a big difference. Maybe there's something I'm not thinking through like offhand. But I really don't think it's going to make a huge difference in how you do it. It's
Okay.
really just kind of more focused on like, are you pinning to enough boards? Are you switching them up? Are the graphics a little bit different? And then you'll be able to kind of like pull it out and see. In my experience, your better pins rise to the top pretty quick, and your other ones like sink down
That's
pretty
amazing.
equally as quick.
Is a view a click to the website, or is that just like a click on the pin? What is a view considered?
So a view is somebody who's been served your pin.
Okay.
Um,
The
and
algorithm
that's
pushing it up,
Yep,
basically.
the algorithm pushing it out. And what's nice when you click into like the communities and you see like your pins, it's going to kind of break all of those things down for you.
Oh, perfect.
So like your view is your reach, right? So I've got, pins with 110,000 views, or that's my reach. And then it'll break it down even further and it'll say, okay, here are the actual saves off of that. And it kind of goes through and it breaks it all down and walks you through like down to the nitty gritty. So you can get really detailed information. It'll tell you how many saves, how many repins, what the reach slash, that's what I've been when I say view, that's what I'm referring to is your reach. So it breaks all of that stuff down. And then if I haven't like sold you on Pinterest and Tailwind also allows you, they have these things called smart loops. So if you've got evergreen content that you're like, hey, it would be really nice to publish this again in 6 months, there's an option to schedule that and it just automatically will re-push that content to each board that you assign it to. And it has a feature so that like it doesn't post to the same board on the same day. Like it really, Tailwind really for 10 to 15 bucks a month sets you up for the best success possible with the Pinterest algorithm.
That's really cool. I've changed my mind on Pinterest. Like I said, I
It is
didn't.
not just for recipes and like workout ideas. It's really like a wealth of information.
And you use it for your podcast right now?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oh man.
Yeah.
See, and you have a marketing podcast. So I was thinking like, would this work for a marketing podcast? But you just kind of answered that question.
Yeah. I
That's
mean, you can make it work for anything, any
that's really
industry. I
cool.
guarantee you this can work for you.
Okay, I'm gonna have to jump on there and check out Pinterest and potentially invest in some Tailwind because I've
Yes.
heard of Tailwind before. I shot a
Yeah.
conference years ago where one of the sessions was actually about using Tailwind because
Mhm.
well, part of my preconceived notions about Pinterest, it was a conference for chefs, for like food
Okay.
blogger
Yep.
people. So
Totally
like
makes sense.
my mentality, I thought it was for recipes, and they're talking about Pinterest through the recipe conference. So like
Yep.
that just kind of fed into that. I was like, that's not going to work for marketing, but now I'm definitely
No.
going to go in there and check that
Yeah.
out. That's pretty
American
cool.
Express has a Pinterest account that's actually really active and like they push the coolest creative out on there. Like they push all of their campaigns. And I'm like, this is I worked at a financial institution and when I needed some like inspiration for an auto loan campaign, I was checking out American Express's Pinterest account.
That's
So if they
that's
can
pretty
make it
cool.
work,
Yeah, right.
you can too.
Yeah, they can sell you debt on Pinterest, then absolutely it can work for anybody else.
Yeah.
All right, so tell us a story of your biggest marketing mistake.
Oh, I would say I'm going to use something that I've learned, like just kind of from owning my own business. My biggest marketing mistake was when I first started, and I took the people that I kind of followed and really like wanted to emulate. And instead of like taking what they were doing and putting my own spin on it, I tried to kind of look and sound exactly like them. Not from like I wasn't taking their content. I want to be super clear. I
No,
wasn't
yeah,
taking their
yeah.
content, but I was trying to kind of just look aesthetically just like they did, but also sound like them because I was like, oh, they're super successful. And what was happening is that I was actually missing the mark when it comes to like creating messages that resonated with my ideal clients and customers, right? So their messaging resonated with me because I was their target. And I was making the mistake of crafting those messages and crafting all of my marketing around trying to kind of emulate and steal a page from their playbook, but I was missing like the biggest component of communicating to your target audience, which is that you have to have the right messages at the right time for the right people. And when you're trying to sound and look exact like somebody else, you're missing the mark for the people who are the best fit for you. And I think it's an easy trap to fall into when you're starting out. Like, even as a marketer, I know that that's not the right way to go about it. But as an entrepreneur, I was like, they're successful. So it should work for me too. So I think that was my biggest mistake. And it just cost me a lot of time that I wasn't connecting with the right people. And then kind of as soon as I started to like settle into my own voice and my own skin, that's when like the clients started like popping up and I started kind of gaining traction. So it didn't it didn't cost me upfront dollars, but it did in the sense that like I wasn't signing the right clients, or the calls that I was having weren't leading to like the sales that I hoped they were because I wasn't connecting with the right people.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's definitely, lost money. It's like, John Lee Dumas, Entrepreneur on Fire. Have you heard his podcast? Yeah.
Mm-mm, I haven't. What
He
happened?
had a podcast for the longest time. He switched it up now, but it was 7 days a week. And it was entrepreneurs and all that kind of stuff. And he still is making $250,000 to $500,000 a month kind of thing. He has it on his
Wow.
website. Yeah. And he talks about how when he started out, he was nervous about launching his podcast because it was 7 days a week. He had, 40, 50 episodes in the backlog, but those are
Yeah.
gone in a little over a month,
Yeah.
So he was nervous, but he kept pushing that launch date back. And what that did is he's like, I didn't lose any money. Like, I'm still making money, obviously now. He's like, what I did
Yeah.
is those 2 months that I pushed back my income 2 months. He's like, I lost an
Hmm.
extra $100,000 or whatever it is, by not launching those 2 months. So not
Yeah.
attracting the right people. Yeah. It's like, okay, didn't technically lose money, but you kind of did because not being authentic and not, trying to craft that wrong message can hurt people, you know,
Yeah.
for sure. But again, it goes back to being authentic. And if I
Yeah.
came on here trying to emulate, Gary Vaynerchuk, I'm not gonna drop an
Right.
F bomb every other word. It's like I'm not gonna attract the right people that I'm trying to reach. So I mean, and
Yeah.
they're gonna get into coaching with me or whatever, and they're gonna be like, all right, who's this guy? Like, that's
Yep.
not the guy I've been
Yep.
listening to on the podcast.
Totally. Totally.
So what's your favorite marketing tool?
I mean, do you want me to revisit Tailwind?
I had a feeling
That's
I was gonna ask in that section, but I figured I was like, I'm gonna let it go.
I think just very well like a second second run at Pinterest and Tailwind. I'm gonna stick with Tailwind. Final answer.
Okay. And does it just do Pinterest?
They actually do Facebook and Instagram. I will
Oh,
say though, I don't use it to publish to those because it really just kind of takes your pins and like
just
reuses
repurposes
them.
them on there.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it doesn't give you that flexibility.
Gotcha.
Um, so you can use it and you can be successful using it. That's just not personally how I run my social channels.
All right. And we've already heard a lot about Tailwind. So I mean, you've already
Yeah.
sold us on it. So if you could go back to when you first started marketing and give yourself one piece of advice, what would it be?
Oh man. Well, I'm thinking about like headstrong, brand new marketing assistant Katlynn. And it would be to listen to your sales people more. And so stick with me. This is a corporate marketing piece of advice I'm going to bring back here to entrepreneurs. Um, I am very passionate about marketing as a craft, as a career. I do believe people can learn marketing and they can do marketing well. But I also have spent my entire I have a degree in marketing. I have continued education. There is something to be said for like kind of going through and having actual like marketing experience and marketing knowledge, right? And nothing used to annoy me more than salespeople who are like, here's what I want to see from marketing. And they like, and I was constantly like, I know best. I am the marketer. First of all, that doesn't go well when you're trying to build relationships with people in a company and work with them. So she needed to slow her roll a little bit there. But also, it was really important because it taught me something that, like, as I grew and I became like a more seasoned corporate marketer, and now as an entrepreneur, it's that skill set of listening is ultimately what it came down to. So listening to the people. So in the corporate environment, it was the salespeople who needed things from me, but they're the ones who are closest to the clients and customers that we were serving. And now as an entrepreneur, I obviously don't have salespeople, but I have customers and clients that are giving me feedback all the time. And it's really easy to be like, I know what I'm doing. I'm a marketer. I have a degree in this. I tell other people what to do for their marketing and they listen to me. I'm the expert. But the piece of advice I'd go back and give myself as that brand new marketer would be to listen and to kind of take all of that information in, because whether it's somebody else who's like requesting something from you or it's a client or customer as an entrepreneur, that is like super valuable information to help you be more strategic in your marketing. They're going to give you the clues that tell you, hey, your messaging is maybe a little bit off here, or it's on point. Capitalize on this part of your process or this particular differentiator that you have, because that's what attracted me. So I would go back and I'd be like, slow your roll and be a better listener and really just kind of take in that information, because you're, as a marketer, as an entrepreneur, you are closest to your clients and customers when they're giving you that feedback. So whether it's good, bad, or otherwise, that's really going to influence how you make marketing decisions going forward. If you, for everything I've said about Pinterest, if you're not connecting with your ideal clients and customers on Pinterest and they're coming to you from LinkedIn, like, what are you doing over here on Pinterest? Do you know what I'm saying? So
Yep.
I would say, I would tell myself, like, be a better listener. Shut up. You are the expert, but experts need information from other people in order to make the best, most strategic marketing decisions possible. And then that's when you start firing on all cylinders, right? It's where your spend starts working for you. It's when the channels start bringing you the right customers and clients. Like, you need that information. So be a better listener.
I love that. And I feel like just listening to it, I kind of tied it back to your biggest marketing mistake question. It's like, you need that information, that input.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're out here and you're like, well, I'm going to do this marketing strategy because Apple does it and it works, but you don't realize that you're Wyndham, hotels. And it's like, your marketing strategies are not going to be the same,
Yep.
so having that, listening to those clients, seeing what they need and what they're talking about, or like you said, in corporate, the salespeople, because they're closest to the clients, they know what they're,
Yeah.
the feedback, you know,
Yep.
I
Yeah.
love that. I love that. So what's the best way for people to catch up on your information and hear some more about you?
Yeah. I am at Authentic Branding on my social channels. My favorite way to connect is through my podcast, Startup Marketing. I really just focus on making marketing actionable and accessible to small business owners. And I have just connected with a ton of great people over the past several months who kind of bring you all of their expertise. So you can find me there. My website is getauthenticbranding.com. You can drop me a message there. I like to chat with people, so you're probably gonna get a request to talk to me instead of just DM back and forth with me. But yes, authentic branding. You can find me everywhere.
Awesome. And I love actionable marketing tips. Like
Yes.
that's like whenever you're talking about Tailwind and Pinterest, not like I literally have like a half page of notes over here on just what you were saying. It's like
Yes.
I'm
Awesome.
definitely going to be subscribing to that podcast because the actionable content, you can have the theories and everything all day, but if you don't know how to take action on it, then where are you, you know?
Yep. Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on today, Caitlin.
Yes. Thank you for having me. This was a great conversation. I
It
love connecting with
really
other
was.
marketers.
It was so much fun. I absolutely loved it. But for everybody else out there listening, watching along, I hope that this episode was as amazing for you as it was for me. I'm definitely going to be taking action on a lot of this content, but stick around, leave a like if you like the video and share it with somebody else who you think could use it. If you know somebody who needs some help in their Pinterest marketing, share this with them because it can definitely help. But I appreciate you joining me today. Remember that marketing matters.